Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me. My talk is going to be almost the opposite of what Daniel just showed you. He was vibe coding with AI, seeing what we can build with AI. And I'm going to show you if we don't use AI, just handcrafted artisanal code, what can we do with Vue in just 20 minutes? So I just had a great intro there, so I don't want to take too much time to explain who I am. But I've been doing independent course creation and things like this, giving talks and so on for about 3 years now. And I've got a newsletter. I've got a podcast with Alex Lichter, who's also given a talk here called Deja Vu, and a bunch of other stuff in the whole Vue and Nuxt ecosystem. So you might have seen me around in different places before, and if not, you can go look me up if you want to. Just search for Michael Thiessen Vue, and you will find me on Google. I've only got about 20 minutes here to build as much as we can. So I'm going to jump in. I've got a timer here for myself, so I'm just going to set that off. And we're going to build a chat app, an AI chat app, and we're going to see how far we can get in 20 minutes. So to start off, what we need to do is npm create Vue, and we'll call it Vue in 20. And we're not going to add anything in there. We're just going to jump right in. We want to get going as fast as possible here. So we'll cd in to our directory, install everything there. And if we run npm dev, we'll get our app running at localhost. So let's fire that up, 5173, which is, if you don't know, that's Vite, V-I-T-E. Little Easter egg there for you. So we've got our basic Vue app set up, but we obviously don't want this. So we're going to jump right back in. But since we're not currently opening in this project just yet, we will run cursor dot. That will open up a new window for ourselves here. We'll just switch over to that one. Now we have our project open on the side here. I like to put my file explorer on the right-hand side. Don't know why. I just like that. And what we're going to do is jump into the source. We can get rid of all of these components because we don't really need them. And we'll open up our app.vue. This is the main component for your application. It's the root one that loads all of the other ones in your application. And Vue has this great thing called single file components where we can add our logic and our HTML markup and all of our styles all in the same file. So I'll just sketch this out here a little bit. And so because we have these 3 different blocks, we have all of that stuff for our component co-located in the same spot. And it makes it really easy to see and to jump around and to edit things. So we'll first fill out a bit of our template here. So we'll add in a main tag. Then we'll do a section, try and keep things, a little bit semantic if we can. Then we're going to add in an article, and this article will be for our, actually, I'll just use a div. I think that makes more sense. This div will be for each chat message. Inside, we'll put the time somewhere. Ooh, maybe if I can type better, this would go better, And we'll put the content from the chat, the actual chat message in there. So we'll just leave that blank for now. We'll get into how we're going to render this out in just a bit. But once we do that, we'll create a footer and we'll do our actual input in here. And of course, we're going to use a form because we want to be semantic, and we get a little bit of help from the browser if we can use a form, because then we can do an input that's a text type, We'll put in a little placeholder because why not? And because we have the form, we can do button type equals submit, and we'll put send. That way, when we hit enter on our input, it'll automatically do the form submission. So up until this point, we've only written just basic HTML, so no view features just yet, but that's what we're going to do now. In our script, we're going to import ref, which is the main piece of reactivity that Vue gives us. And with it, we can do a whole lot of things. So I'm going to first create a list of messages so we can keep track of all of that. But then I also want to keep track of our new message so that we can see that as we're typing it out. And new message, we will bind it to this input down here because we want it to update as we type. And all that we need to do is a simple little V model here. Just make sure that I'm typing the right things. I've got some notes here for myself. New message, not new messages. And all that we need to do is this, and we will get that shown up and synced automatically. Then once we type out a message, we want to hook this up to, well, actually we're not doing it on the button. As I said before, we're doing semantic HTML here. So the event is actually on our form element, and we'll do a submit. And we'll call the send message function, which we'll create in just a second. And what we can do on this event is actually this, we have these modifiers that let us do some common things. And this one lets us prevent the default action. So the form won't actually send any sort of submit. It will just call this method, and that's that. So to create our send message function, we will do an async function, send message. And in this, we will get the message that we are going to send from our new message. And we just grab that using the dot value. That's how we get the reactive value off of that ref. And it's a pretty simple JavaScript. Now we can just grab the message, add it to as the content. We'll do a role of user so that we can eventually pipe this into the OpenAI API. And we'll get a timestamp as well. We'll do locale time string. Okay. And that allows us to send the message. We're not really sending a message at this point. We're just adding it onto this array that we've defined up here at the top. But we haven't rendered this out anywhere. So that's our next step. If we come down to this area here where we had stubbed out our messages, we can pop them in. So what we're going to do is an attribute called v4, or we call them directives as well. And we just say message in messages, and then we have to give them a key. And here we can use the timestamp as the key. And what's interesting here is that we have this this colon here that lets us supply JavaScript expressions to this property, this prop. Instead of just static strings, we can pass in any JavaScript expression. We need this key so that Vue knows how each message is unique, because we could, in theory, have messages that have the exact same thing on them. So we do message.content here. Oh, message.timestamp there, and message.content there. Now, if I come back here, I'll zoom in a little bit and we can say, hello, how are you? Okay, so it's working. It's not great. It's not pretty, but we have something. One thing that we definitely want to do is to clear our message at the end. And that's all that we need to do is to set it to an empty string. And then, of course, this isn't really a chat app unless we can get an AI response back. So to do that, we'll create a function called get AI message. If I use the correct syntax, then that would be great. And we'll pass in all of the messages. And for now, we'll just leave that stubbed out because I want to place this in our send message here. We can do AI response. We'll do an await on get AI message, passing in all of the messages. And then we do the exact same thing that we did with the first message. So I'll just copy and paste that in. But we will instead pass in the AI response and instead give it a role of assistant. So to flesh out this AI message a little bit more, we're actually just going to simulate it using, you know what, we're going to skip that part because we're running out of time and I want to show you some more stuff here. So we'll just go straight to integrating the actual endpoint. So we're going to grab our response. We're going to do a regular fetch call and hopefully I can type out this URL correctly the first time instead of making a typo and getting embarrassed here. You know, live coding demos. Okay, completions has an S. There we go. Then we have to set the method to post. Headers are always fun to type out. I don't have any autocomplete on here because I find it to be annoying when I'm trying to do demos like this because all sorts of stuff pops up that's irrelevant. The authorization, we need to grab our API key and we can use that from our environment variable, OpenAI API key. And for the body, we need to stringify this object, which we'll be using GPT 4.1 Nano because it's fast and cheap. Pass in all the messages. I like a temperature of 0.7. Makes it a little bit creative, but not too much. And we'll do max tokens at 200 just so we get, for sure, short responses in our chat app here. So once we get the response, we have to do the classic JSON function here, which is a little bit annoying, but we got to do it. And then we also have to do this weird JSON spelunking thing that the OpenAI API returns. And now we've got our AI message endpoint fetching method here. We don't have our environment variable yet, but I have prepared, and of course, I'm not going to expose my key here. So I'm just going to copy that from a different file. So we've copied that in. I need to restart the dev server here. And while we wait for that to start up, which it should have already because it's very fast, because it's Vite, I'm just going to copy in some basic styling into our style scoped block. And so the interesting and the really cool part that Vue does for us here with style blocks is that we can scope it directly to a component so that these styles don't leak across different components. And it what it actually does in the browser is it hashes the name and does that uniquely. So let me test out this app here. If I say hello, then we should get a response back. Something is going wrong here? So let me see if I can double check why I have a circular data structure. Um, I something with the messages when I'm stringifying it. I need to pass messages dot value because I'm trying to pass a ref when it expects just a plain JavaScript array. And there we go. Now we can see we're actually connected into AI. I can get it to tell me a very bad joke. And we're not laughing because the AI doesn't have very good humor. At least this one does not. So this is great. We've got 5 minutes-ish left. And we've got this single page app with, a basic UI. We're getting a message here. What if we wanted to do server-side rendering? And what if we wanted to do, a backend API for our application? Well, we do have a solution for that, and it's called Next, which is a wonderful meta framework if you are not familiar. And what we can do is, if I go back to my developer directory, I can do pnpm create Next. And we will call it Next in 20. And we'll select pnpm, and we'll skip all of the extra stuff once we get to that point. No git. I'm really relying on my internet connection here for this live coding, which is always a little bit of a gamble. Again, we need to do cursor to open into a new window here, pnpm dev to start it up. And actually, I closed that one too soon because what I want to do is copy everything that we've already built, and then we'll switch back over to our Next in 20 and pnpm dev. And Next works very similarly to Vue, and we can just paste what we had before into the app.view that Next gives us. And if I instead go to localhost 3000, we get our app again. And of course, I will need to do my environment variable. So next env to .end, that copies it over. The thing that's different with Next is that instead of prefixing our environment variables with vit, we have to do it with next underscore. And we also have to update the Next config to use this runtime config, open AI API key. I think I did that wrong. And if I set this to an empty string, and then I come over here and instead do use runtime config dot open AI API key. Apologies for that. All right, live debugging. Okay, 401. So my API key is not coming in correctly. OpenAI API key. What am I doing wrong here? Well, That's what I'm doing wrong, is I should say const config is that, and then oh, of course, this is what I'm doing wrong. I'm going off script, and it's not working because of that. So what Nuxt does is with runtime config, it will make this private by default because this is an OpenAI key. It's secret. We don't actually want this exposed to our front end. So we need to create a server route, which is actually not too difficult. We create it in a folder called server/API/ we'll just call it AI.ts. And if we do this, we can do export default define event handler. Then we need the event. And we use the event to grab all of the messages using a method called read body. And I'm getting close to my 20 minutes. My timer has gone off here, but I want to show you these things. So we're going to maybe go over time a little bit. So we'll see how long this takes. Okay, so response await. We can use a built-in utility to Nuxt called $fetch, which makes things a lot easier for us. We don't have to do this whole stringify thing because it does it for us automatically. Here we can use runtime config, OpenAI key. Then missing a bracket somewhere. I need to pass the event in here. That's why it's giving me that error over there. And then we need to do that JSON spelunking again. Got rid of that. And there we go. Oh, and type. The type is wrong. So we'll just throw any type on there because we're live coding and that's how we're going to do it. All right, so we've got our server route done by basically just copying over the thing that we had before. And then now we can get rid of this. We don't need that function. Instead, in here, instead of get AI message, we'll actually do $fetch, that same $fetch we had before. And we'll call /API/AI, the endpoint that we just created. We'll say method is post, and we'll pass in this value as our body, because remember, we're parsing that out with the read body. Now, if we go over here, we should be able to get things working. And there we go. We get our AI assistant to respond back to us there. So we have in just over 20 minutes, an app that has some functionality, very limited functionality. It's quite ugly, but it works. And oh, the styling, I forgot to put the class names actually on there, so there's no styling. It would be a little bit prettier if that were the case. But we have full backend. We've got server-side rendering. We have client-side navigation that we can add on. We're running out of time here, so I was not able to show you some other things that we can do. But I hope that you see the point in that if you're using AI, you can use a whole lot when you're vibe coding. But even if you're not using AI, Vue plus Nuxt gives you a whole ton of features and amazing things to do that you can build your apps really quickly and very, very feature-rich system that we can use to build apps. And if you like this kind of content and want to learn more, I have a book on Vue. It's just a collection of 118 tips, short little tips on using Vue. You can find that on my website. It's called Vue Tips Collection. And It's an ebook PDF that you get in an email. And I'm also the instructor for Mastering Nuxt Full Stack Unleashed. And if you haven't heard the news, Nuxt 4 is on its way. We're going to get it in a few weeks. And Mastering Nuxt will be up to date with Nuxt 4 and fully complete in July. So you won't have to wait very long to learn Nuxt 4 as soon as it's released. So that's pretty fantastic. The timing could not have been better. So thanks, Daniel, and the rest of the team for that. And even better, right now, because we're in early access and we've got Frontend Nation going on, you can use this Nuxt level code, get an extra $30 off. I'm trying to zoom in here on that, but it won't let me. And yeah, if you are interested in learning Nuxt, this is the best way to do it. So enjoy. And thank you for having me here on the conference. And thank you for watching.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for your amazing crash course. It was lovely having you here. And we do have some questions from the audience. So I think we can start. The first one is, what makes Vue particularly beginner friendly compared to other frameworks?
So one thing is that it's more like HTML. So I think where am I here? If I go back to this here, we can like a lot of frameworks, React specifically, when you're writing this, you're not writing
We don't see your screen, so I'm
HTML.
not sure if you are showing something.
Oh, I was trying to show my screen. Oh, okay, there we are. Okay, so when we're writing this kind of the markup, we're actually writing HTML. We're just adding a couple things on top, like a v4 and some of these like mustache brackets here. Whereas something like React, you're doing it in JSX, you're writing JavaScript, and so it feels a little bit more difficult for some people. As well, the documentation for Vue is it's top notch, and I've read through it many, many times, and I hear a lot from a lot of people that that is like one of the things that gets them in, and they fall in love with it because they they started to read the documentation. Everything just sort of clicked for them, and it's easy to figure out things and go from there.
Perfect. Another person is asking, how do you handle the pressure of live coding in a conference setting?
Well, I think that when it's remote, it's a little bit easier because I have no clue how many people are watching, and when I make a mistake, it's not so bad. But I think practice, practice, practice. If you saw my very first videos that I put out that I recorded, I was not very good, and it took me a very long time to get comfortable in front of a camera and comfortable doing like a live stream kind of thing like this. And so it's basically just like repetition, I would say.
Yes, and if I may add something here, is of course practice is everything, but also usually the first few videos that we are going to release or the first few blogs that we are going to write, not a lot of people are going to watch or read, which is a cool thing because we are still improving and practicing,
Yes.
but slowly we will gain more audience. Thank you. So we have one more question for you, which is, what Vue concepts do developers struggle with most when starting out?
Yeah. So I think with Vue 2, it used to be reactivity, but with Vue 3, that whole system was completely overhauled and made a lot more simple and streamlined. With Vue 3, I think one of the biggest challenges that I see is with scoped slots and slots in general. Kind of hard concept to wrap your head around, but
Mhm.
very powerful if you can understand them. I think that's probably the biggest challenge that I would see people uh, running into.
Thank you very much. It was lovely having you here. Thank you for presenting this
Thank
short
you for having
course
me.
for us. And I will see you around. Thank you.